It is endlessly mysterious. It was critical that we spent time in Venice to allow our cinema audience to really enjoy the thrill that is being there at any time. But when it's linked to being part of a real mystery, a city that really invites you to the mysterious, whether it's through people being behind masks, being behind fog and mist, being lost in alleyways that are shadow-filled, being in front of palaces that are gorgeously ornate, but also rather intimidating, surrounded endlessly by statues of justice, with the scales of justice and the sword of justice, making you wonder, what do they have to be so just about? Hildur is someone who can respond to what we had in mind for this one, which is to find music that told the interior life of Poirot through the story of the film, and also the interior life of the palazzo. So it was more a sort of mood piece, a kind of soulful mood piece that was reflecting some of the unease, some of the tension, some of the unanswered questions. And it was interesting to invite someone like this to really respond with their own natural reaction to the way the story took them. Her mother was a great reader of Agatha Christie, and so Hildur was very, very familiar with the world of this English crime procedural. She was very drawn to that. But she has in her work an access to a haunting quality, a soulful quality, an eerie quality, a fractured quality, a damaged quality. The tonal range that she chose from that period, the tonality of the score was something very particular to post-war Europe. Tina Fey has a sharpness and an intellectual bite and comic sensibility that the world knows of through many wonderful pieces of work, and she brings that and this sort of tremendous energy to the life force that is Ariadne Oliver. People say it's the closest character across all of the books that she wrote to Agatha Christie herself. So if this is true, then Miss Christie must have been provocative, entertaining, naughty, really sort of garrulous, playful, and Tina brings all that to the role with a sharpness and a sense of period. Joyce Reynolds is a character who enters the house mysteriously, announces that there are so many voices and so much pain in this house, and she will lead a seance. So she's a character who brings in a sense of a sort of psychic entitlement, a personal sadness, and a sort of naughty intelligence. Michelle Yeoh can carry this kind of thing with ease. She has a soulful quality in her, Michelle, which we know from her wonderful work. Yes, if you believe that anybody can talk to the other side, you believe that Michelle Yeoh in playing Joyce Reynolds can, and that price, if it is a price to pay, is one that she feels the sort of burden of. So once again, I was so happy with all of the actors, but Michelle is another example of bringing a depth, a humanity to something that could otherwise be merely on the surface, the showman who is tricking people perhaps with this seance. Instead, she has us doubt and question and like her throughout. She herself is a walking mystery. So in terms of an enigma, Michelle brings to Joyce Reynolds that quality that has the audience lean forward from the moment she appears. The instinct across the couple of films we've made is to see whether this could be more of a chamber piece, so a smaller number of suspects, but with Michael Green, our screenwriter, taking the license to involve a couple of sort of additional subplots of his own. He always speaks with and has the approval of the Agatha Christie estate, and James Pritchard, one of our executive producers, and her great-grandson, has always been a very important figure in finding the right tone that allows for the real diehard fans to feel that the stories are Agatha Christie-like in spirit. So Michael reduced the number of people, transposed from England to Venice, and then chose to take, as distinct from the first two films, where the first part of the movie, in any case, is about the energy and the speed of leaving on a luxurious mode of travel, a fantastic train or a wonderful cruiser down the Nile. In this case, we're already in the sensational place, Venice, which is eternally, pictorially ravishing. And he traps the suspects fairly early on in a stormy Venice where water, rain, and traffic and the Halloween night will not allow people to escape from this haunted palazzo. I think that Poirot, maybe like Christie, maybe like all of us, continues to fascinate us because he continues to be surprised by what human beings are capable of and what passion will lead them to. The passion in the first film for revenge, in the second one for lust or greed, you might say, the desire to own or possess someone. And in this film, I think a question about whether there is anything beyond us, whether there is anything on the other side, a ghost, a god, something that would make meaning of some of what I just touched on, the apparently arbitrary nature of why human beings do sometimes the extreme criminal, violent and fatal things that they sometimes do. Go and experience Venice. Go and be in the big screen in Venice with these characters in this scary place. Go with your friends. Go. I've been in audiences watching this where I've seen groups of friends really enjoy it, where I've seen that early, it's him, it's her, no, it's not. That's such a fun thing to do. And you will be scared. You will be scared, and I guarantee that even if you think you've got it, I think you'll find that there are surprises all the way through to the end.
I spoke with Kenneth and we're like, you know, it has to be, and he right away said, it has to be real. It has to be physically that you are doing it by yourself, which then sets me up in a completely mindset. It's like, what are the things that you can do that is physical, that is in your face, that will shock you? Right, without being thrown against the wall and start crawling up the ceiling or something like that. That it has to be so visceral. So we worked with voices, we worked with different languages, and that was where Kenneth was very open. I said, you know, coming from Asia, you know, I would throw in this, and because she was the whole group, it was Europe at that time where it was in turmoil and people were moving from countries and borders to run away from the war or trying to escape. So, you know, there was Croatian, there was Italian, different languages, but it had to be in such a way that you can hear with all the different, you know, the sounds. So it was, but getting to that point, I had nightmares.
And I read Michael Green's script. I was very entertained, obviously, and captivated, and he's such a skilled writer. But the main thing I noticed, too, is that this was a departure in that it's not only a murder mystery, but there's also a ghost story and supernatural element to the film, which sort of takes it to another level.
I think with the movies themselves as a finished piece, they have a really good blend of something a little bit cheeky and a bit funny, but also, you know, riveting with the whole mystery of it all as well, keeps you going, and you know there's a darkness to it, but I feel that Haunting in Venice leans into it much more. Michael Green's script is much darker, and without totally losing that sense of the playfulness of what Agatha Christie created, but it definitely is sort of seeped in a darkness more than the previous two films that Ken's done. It's been a lovely thing working with Jude again and watching him grow as a boy and as an actor. It's a lovely relationship because there's so much care involved from both sides. Leopold needs Ferrier because it's his father, but Ferrier almost needs him as a support almost more than the other way around. He wishes that he could be a better father for him and be stronger for his son, but he's sort of incapable of it. It felt like you're in a real enclosed building. What that does is it creates a sense of, like, you know, authenticity essentially, and we're all really in this place. And of course there's lights and there's cameras and, you know, boom mics and all sorts of stuff, but anything that can help and aid the experience of we're all kind of trapped in this place and very strange things are happening is crucial. So I've never been on a set like this before, and it was amazing to have this created for us because it makes our job a lot easier. You know, having to be number one on the call sheet, be prominent in nearly every scene, but also, you know, having to deal with an ensemble, a lot of actors, let alone, you know, Harris and what he's doing with the camera and all the other aspects that go into filmmaking. There's a lot of notes he has to give to a lot of different, you know, people. And so to be able to be taking that on whilst also trying to stay in his own character, it's an incredible feat, I have to say. And my hat is firmly off to him with how he manages it, and he manages it so seamlessly. You know, it's a real talent, that. And we're not shooting, we're all in a tent together. There's people bringing chess boards, there's games, there's lots of snacks. We're talking. It's creates this real sense of a unit and a company. We're like a company of actors, and we're all in this together. It's a great thing, and no director does it except Ken. Like all Poirot movies, you don't want to see it coming, and I feel with this, there's like so many moments you think you have a grasp on what's happened and who's responsible. No one will see this coming. I can say that with confidence. I don't think anyone will get who's involved in all of this, except for Poirot.
The marvelous thing about Kenneth Branagh is he never really directs you. He sort of just guides you in the way, and he leaves you to do the rest. So it's not like other directors where they have a clear image of the character in their mind and they project it to you. Ken gives you the basic info, all the stuff he wants you to know, and then he lets you go and he lets you think of the character as your own character. Nobody's telling you to do anything. My character's full name is Leopold Ferrier. He is a 10-year-old throughout this movie, and I wouldn't say his intelligence level is of a 10-year-old. I'd say he's very mature, and he thinks of himself as very intelligent. He wears a perky little suit, he wears glasses, and he knows he's pretty smart, and I love that aspect about him. I like to think of it as Leopold is sort of the adult in this love between him and his father is the child. And any scene that Leopold's and his father with in the movie, he's not making any sudden movements, he's not shouting at his dad, he always keeps it at a low tone, he doesn't want to upset his dad, slow movements, and Leopold is the caretaker. As an actor, obviously, you have to sort of feel the character, but with the costume design, the hair design, the glasses, the mask, it definitely helped me adapt to the environment, and the set was just another big plus, because I couldn't really do this if I was in a playground, and the creepy, dull lighting, the very eerie atmosphere, you don't know who's around that corner, who's in that door, and the set design definitely helps. One of the most obvious things that's different, the other Poirot movies were sort of like where the audience was questioning everything, but this one's quite different. It's a supernatural thriller, so there's aspects of the supernatural and the real, and it's up to all the characters to see what parts of it is real and what's not.
Rowena is a retired opera singer, and she is holding a party at Halloween for the children, and she opens the house, the palazzo, up, and I think she puts on one of her costumes from an opera, and she tells an elaborate story, which is, you know, in her mind true, about how haunted the palazzo is, and it used to be an orphanage and terrible things happened here. One of the wonderful things about how Ken shoots is that we don't rehearse. He invites us all individually to the set, and we talk about what our intentions are, our physical, practical situation, where we're sat, where we move to, any questions that we might have. He does that all individually, and then we all come together and the cameras are all up. So there is a sense of excitement, anticipation. One of the things that struck me most personally about his Poirot is he carries such a great sadness as him, a loneliness, which enables him to sort of move into people's lives and they open up to him and they talk to him in ways that they would not usually, and it's sort of surprising. He has an empathy as Poirot, which I find really beautiful. Have this holding tent where we all wait to be invited to set, and we play games and we tell stories, and it's a lot of fun. It's a really nice group of people. It's really it feels like we all are aware that we all have our place in telling this story, and everyone's really supportive and just got great humor, which is really important when you're telling a sort of horror story, you know, and also, you know, you need some levity and sort of some you need to be able to have some fun, and we have a lot of fun. There's something a little edgier, a little darker. It feels almost sort of film noir, even the way we're shooting it, he's shooting it. There's something, the other two are so, you know, on location, they're very glamorous, there's something very sweeping and beautiful about it. And Haunting in Venice feels, obviously we're in Venice, but we're on a soundstage at Pinewood, beautiful set. Literally, I mean, it just transports you. I've never ever shot on a set quite as beautiful as this, that's been built. We don't see daylight. We literally come to work in the dark. We're shooting in the dark. It's all lit by candles and one light. It's very moody and atmospheric, and I feel like we're making a thriller.
We met the week before the film would start filming, and so I knew we had 2 hours together, and it was really interesting because he said, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. How do you feel about ghosts? How do you feel about God? And how do you feel about housekeeping? And it says a lot about Ken's method with directing his actors. It's about questioning, and what matters to him is your answer and your perspective of the character. And he keeps on asking questions even on set. Olga Seminoff is an interesting character because she's full of contradictions, as we all are, I guess. So she expresses herself very oftenly in Latin because she's had more than a religious education. She's been to a convent. But she fell in love with the guy who came and fixed the roof, Mr. Seminoff. But God still has a very important place in her heart. And she was employed as a housekeeper because no one else would do the job, but she confesses and admits that she's a terrible housekeeper. So Mrs. Rowena and her have a mutual agreement that Mrs. Rowena will have a poor service, but no one else can do it, and it's quite mediocre. And I'm happy to find the job, even though I'm not somebody with a, how could I say, a very good sense of doing anything with my hands, I guess. But because it's a very particular home and no one wants to work there, well, I took the opportunity. And but moreover, there's also, that's for the funny side of the character and the relationship, but she's also very devoted to this mother and her child, having no children herself, and you can feel that she's very moved by this relationship, and that she was very attached to that little girl that she has known as a little girl until she fell in love and became a young woman, and then tragically disappears. So she's very, very attached to that girl. Olga could be very severe. When you read her, she has something very severe, but little by little you find that she has lots of vulnerability, and that she's an Epicurean. So we had to find that balance between some rigidity, but something ready to explode, or, yeah, being free. A certain freedom, I have to say. Excitement, thrill, surprise. And I'm very happy because I think that's the first time when I was telling the story to my 12-year-old boy, and he said, "That one, Mum, can I see it?" And I said, yes. So it says it all. No, but I think it's a very, I think for the fans of Poirot and Agatha Christie, which are numbered, it's finding the hero again, finding the ambience that you like, but in another vibration.
I imagine Maxime, when he meets Poirot, is really impressed. I think Maxime values intelligence. I think Maxime frequently thinks that he's the smartest person in the room, and he definitely isn't when Poirot is also in the room. So I think Maxime has a bit of a man crush on Poirot, if I may. I think he really respects him. The set, getting into character, you almost don't have to. When it's a set like this, you feel like you're exactly where you are. It's as terrifying and ominous and interesting as it needs to be. There's always something to do or look at or see. I mean, just spending time in here, you get transported. The set is incredible. We went through several iterations of Maxime's suit with Sammy, our costume designer. She is absolutely incredible. I think we remade my suit about 3 or 4 times. It's so precise. They want everything to be absolutely perfect, and it is. And I think one of the highlights of this was the first time the whole cast sat down together in costume. It's like everyone, as I was like seeing them walk through the door, and then just was amazed. Everyone looks incredible. I think it's so interesting having Kenneth direct and also be the lead character of this. I was always curious as a fan of the series how he did it and how that worked, and to get to experience it firsthand is incredible. And I'd find it works so well. He can do it so seamlessly. He's such a brilliant actor and obviously a brilliant director. The script was fantastic. It's so different than the other films, which I didn't read the scripts for those, but I watched them, and I really liked how kind of intimate and terrifying this one was, and it was incredibly well written and structured. I think they're gonna be blown away. I think audiences are really gonna gravitate towards this one. I think it's so unique. It's definitely a brilliant departure from the last two. It takes a whole new turn. I think it's really exciting. It is completely unexpected. I enjoyed it so much.
Nicholas, he's one of two, really. I mean, he's like his other half is his sister, and they are Miss Reynolds' assistants, and they kind of aid in the seance, and whereas Desdemona is kind of the like showman, I'd say. She kind of helps in the light. My character's more in the shadows. Working with Ken's great. You don't really notice the switch of him being an actor. Do you know what I mean? It kind of feels like it's very natural. Like he'll be like, do the scene and be like, okay, and he'll go into the other room and it'll work and be like, okay, let's do this, let's do that. And it feels nice because he understands like an actor's mindset and how much they would care about the character, because I guess if we're good at anything, it would just be understanding the character. Like we have one job, you know, so it's to understand the character and kind of have ideas about it, and he's very open and receptive to those ideas. I mean, if I wasn't in it, I'd see it because I'm like Tina Fey and Michelle Yeoh are in it, and I'm definitely gonna watch them in a horror. Like, yeah, I'd definitely go see it if I wasn't, because also like I think it just looks beautiful. You know, there's so much effort been put into set design, cinematography, costume. It just like kind of feels like a shame to kind of miss out on it in a way.
I love actors that are also directors because they know how to talk to actors, and he asks you these questions that you sometimes just don't ever think about yourself. And I loved that we got to have this time prior to shooting to develop this story together. There was me, Michelle Yeoh, who plays Reynolds, and Ali, who plays Nicholas, and Ken sat in a room, having this big talk about how these three came to work together and where they traveled and what their role was to one another, and that to have that collectively, because you do that prep anyway on your own, but to have that as a group allows you to go into the scene and you just have this connection and this shared experience, which makes everything so much more real. So I really love the way that Ken works with his actors. I think it's very unique and very special, and not something I take for granted. She's got a lot of tricks up her sleeve because she's had to learn to steal and steal sensibly so she doesn't get caught, and food, jewelry to sell, and she's a very cunning, clever woman, and she's very watchful. I think that's something I took into a lot of scenes, was observe everything, listen to everything, because you could catch something in conversation, and that's powerful when you have dirt on someone. So that's always something I'm conscious of when I walk into a scene as Desdemona, is that she's always watching, she's always listening. I think with Desdemona and Nicholas as well is that she's older. She's definitely the one that led them throughout their journey of survival. But then at the same time, it's funny because she's in a little bit of a fantasy world with this dream of going to St. Louis, she'd say St. Louis. And Nicholas is just like, yeah, it's her dream. Like, I just want to keep her happy, because that's something to cling on to in this terribly devastating world that she's living in during war and losing her family. It's like having that dream is something that it just keeps her going, and Nicholas just supports it because he wants her to be happy. So Nicholas is a little bit more pragmatic in that sense, even though she's the one that's the older, calls the shots. But then she's got this ridiculous dream of going to America. The set is so real because usually there's one room on a different stage, and it's all pretty much here. And it's like a character in itself, the set, it really is. Even when we shot the seance scene, it adds to that ambiance, and Ken plays the music in the background, and it just helps keep the cast and crew super respectful and super present. Such a big ensemble cast, but everyone has this incredible backstory and journey, and you love them and go on this journey with them, and you're also just like, who killed this person? Like, I think with this script in particular, you're left guessing until the last second.
He's like a kind of bodyguard to protect him from, people asking for money. Poirot is famous, and so, he is in Italy, in Venice, he's going around, and so I'm his protector, actually. I'm there to protect him. Ken is very precise, and he has a talent as a director that he comes to you, and the way he talks to the actors, the way he explains what he's looking for that scene, and the level of the attention that he has to every single actor. And we are many actors at the same time, but he has the same kind of attention even for those actors that maybe in that scene they don't have lines, but it does close-ups, it tells everything with a kind of obsessive precision, but with some warm attitude that makes you feel you can go over your limits. He has like a very good level, balance between, the observed character, which Poirot is, starting from the mustache, supposed to be, I don't say, this is my idea of Poirot, supposed to be a little bit not, but at the end not. This is the wonderful thing, because we think, but he is the only one who understood everything. This is the great thing about this character, and I think Ken does it perfectly. it is a wonderful. The production designer is, I mean, amazing, because, you know, I know Venice very well. I've been there so many times, and it looks, we are in Venice here. She's amazing. And that performance, that scene, she really was very, very tough, very, you know, impressive, quite frankly, you know, and absolutely disturbing, sinister. We believed completely that she was like having like a kind of trance.
Script development on this started with a few conversations about us saying, what do you think about Halloween Party? And then following that with, what do you think if we changed it a bit? If we moved its setting, if we decided to make it a ghost story taking place in a haunted house all over one night. And then we knew we could draw some themes, some story elements, some character pieces, and that it would be a bit more of an adaptation of Halloween Party. And we were very fortunate that everyone involved quickly saw it and got excited about it. This idea of turning Halloween Party into a ghost story takes place all in one scary, scary home on a scary, scary night. Once we focused in on the idea of a ghost story, we immediately thought, well, what's the most haunted city in the world? And there is nothing more haunted than a Venetian palazzo. The city just calls for mist and masks and the creepy, crawly, throw a body in the river feel. The story of Haunting in Venice finds Poirot having said goodbye to it all. His experiences in crime, investigation, seeing the worst of humanity, seeing another war, have just made him give up. And he has cloistered himself, quite literally, in the rectory of a church in a beautiful city where he is spending his time doing everything he can to avoid turning on the little gray cells, shutting down his machine. He does not want to think about crime. But of course, crime comes to him. Ariadne, Oliver, comes and she has something she just has to show him. And it's not a crime. She promises. She wants to show him a seance, and she wants him to help her prove it's false, it's fake. He finds himself intrigued. And then, of course, a seance turns into a murder, and Poirot is stuck doing what he is born to do. As a screenwriter, it's always a gift when you know who is going to inhabit the role, and you can write it directly to the things, to their strengths. It is definitely an advantage 3 films in to know how Ken plays the role, how funny he is, that there are certain sounds and words in the accent that he's perfected now that just do better and worse. The set, it's scary. It's claustrophobic. It's dark. We're in the dead of night all day long, and I love it. It's just, it's creepy on the set. Everyone's having a good time and doing their work and working fast, but you just look around and there's paint peeling and water dripping and terrifying statues and dead bodies. I love it. What it would be like to do a scary movie for grown-ups, a scary movie that is reminiscent of Don't Look Now, The Haunting, Changeling, The Innocents, films that really stand the test of time because they are mature and adult and, well, at the same time, can be quite terrifying and are beautiful to look at.
He's always described Poirot's suit to me, even when we started Nile, as like a superhero suit. It's not just tailoring. It's like his superhero look. So everything has to be very sharp and neat and tight and sort of seamless in a way. So that there's no variation in it in terms of once it's on, like zip up the back type of thing, which is a really strong sort of identity to follow. And if you look in the other films, it's exactly the same. There's a meticulousness about how he presents himself within a group. For Ariadne, I felt that she's kind of Agatha Christie in a way, isn't she? And also she's kind of businesslike and a little sassy but very intelligent. And I felt that we needed to present her in a kind of very snappy, sharp silhouette that had some kind of lines running through it. So the skirt is like box and knife pleats alternate, to kind of, you know, give that sharpness of the skirt without it going too much into the Dior very big shape. And then she's got a three-piece suit basically, but it's a female version. Joyce in this story is quite matter-of-fact about how she comes in and is, you know, aware of all the things going on in the house. And there's an element of purity about her. So we did start off in the world of doing a really fabulous, angular, yet ambiguous bit of tailoring. And the journey went on, and we ended up in this world where I was like, it's almost priest-like. And I wanted her to be black because I kept having these kind of images of a dice whenever I was reading her journey. I have to say, the entire cast is fabulous, and every single one of them, I've had a great journey with developing their looks, and there's not been any kind of like, oh, I don't want to wear that. It's always been, you know, really positive. And Riccardo just loves his suit. He's very easy to dress. He's an Italian man, and he's, you know, uncomplicated. And, you know, the only things he said was, I don't wear a hat and I wouldn't have anything in my pocket. Let's just keep it simple. And it's stark, simple, and it kind of works for the Portfoglio character. It's definitely intriguing and dramatic. And there's lots of elements to it that I'm hoping everyone will kind of really enjoy the journey, because it's definitely a story that flows. And I didn't guess who the killer was when I read. It was not, you know, that's great when you can't work it out. And it feels like it's a different film than the other two. It's much more intimate, which is great.
I think what was really appealing instantly, because the first thing you do as a production designer is imagine the world that these people are going to inhabit, and Michael Green had really cleverly reimagined Halloween Party into a Venetian palazzo environment, which is just a production designer's dream, really. So I was blown away with the possibilities. How we were going to achieve them, I had no idea. Ken initially suggested we maybe look at locations in the UK, that we travel to Venice, look at locations there, think about the possibilities of building it. But initially, when we first met, nobody really knew how we were going to achieve what was in the script. I think what was really appealing from the very first read of the script was that the palazzo was a character. It was essentially one of the people that this story was about, and it has a role that's kind of much more prominent than in a lot of films where you're moving from world to world. This world is its own world, and it is potentially responsible for killing these people. So the house starts to play a really crucial part in the storytelling. Ken likes to work in a way, I think, as an actor director often does, that you feel the environment is complete, and at no point when you look anywhere do you know you're on a set. So every set is completely enclosed. Every set has a ceiling. Every view out through a window has got a backing cloth that is believable. So as you stand here looking around, not with a film camera, but to the naked eye, you feel like you're in the room and in Venice. Peter Russell, the supervising art director, was adamant that we needed to build a concrete tank for this. It needed to be a very big tank. It turns out, which I hadn't realised when I started this, it was that the gondolas are 11 metres long. That's kind of 35 feet long. So to manoeuvre a number of gondolas around the place, which we've had to do, to have them sail inside cabanas, it became very evident really quickly we were going to need a lot of space, and we were going to need a lot of tanks. Working with Ken Branagh has been extraordinary, I have to say. It's been a real experience. Ken allows you to run with your ideas completely. He let me imagine
everything that was in my head and create it into a world that I was happy with.
I'm such a sucker for a good whodunit, and I think Agatha Christie is obviously, you know, the queen of the form, and I also was very excited to do a slightly darker and moody and but still very classical, you know, classical whodunit, you know, with to really staying true to form. Ken was he's very clear with what he wants, and he's a phenomenal communicator, you know, and he's very articulate. He's very good at explaining, like, okay, this is where we are, this is what we're saying, and, you know, this is the world we're in, and then, you know, he just so graciously hands it over, and it's just been an absolute joy, because it's just been so clear, and he's really stuck with his vision the whole way through, you know. So from the very first pieces of music, like he's really embraced them and had them in the whole time, and it's just been really such a pleasure to see that grow. I wanted to take a rather classical approach to the instrumentation, so that even though some of the instruments are playing in a slightly unusual way, perhaps, it's all very classical instruments, and you know, there's strings and wind instruments are most prominent, and so I wanted it to be very organic and classical, really, in form. So there's no electronics, there's no reverb, there's no delays, like there's nothing modern in the score. It's rather old instruments. So I was listening a lot to music from this time, like music from around like 1945, and a lot of the and more into the direction of like new music from that time. So not the, you know, not the maybe the most classical pieces, but the more kind of atonal pieces, because it's a very interesting period of time in music. You know, right after the war, like, you know, there's this big breakout from romanticism, that's, you know, there's this push and pull between that, you know, these romantic ideas and this build up of like what is music, and how do we work with harmony and textures, you know, so there's a lot of the the tonality of the music, I think, and the orchestration is heavily based on those ideas.